Do you ever have those days where you wake up and you're just like so happy to be alive? Like that's how I felt today, but it's not even in like a spiritual way. I just had food poisoning all of the last 24 hours. I woke up feeling mostly human. Oh, it feels so good to be able to have the energy to like exist right now. So the video that I want to do today is kind of a follow-up to the conversation from the last video because it was about new beauty releases, except for the fact that there kind of aren't any, and that I am eager to return to the classics a little bit. So I went digging through my stash and I found things that we haven't talked about in a long time that are what I consider to be legacy products, kind of classic products, and things that have kind of existed for a while. We're not talking about like 30 years old. Not everything is like Clinique Black Honey, but these are products that due to the churn of it all, I forgot about and y'all probably did too. And the best part is you probably already own some of these. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so first thing I need to do, because I feel like I can't talk until I do this, is we're gonna do skin prep. Actually, let's do the skin prep first, but I need to prep my lips because like I feel like they're sticking together as I talk. It's just that dry right now. So a classic product that everybody talks about because it just stands the test of time. This is one of those like products that seems to do something good for everyone, and I can't really explain why. It's the vitamin enriched face base from Bobbi Brown, and it is a little bit lemon fragrance, and that might just be an ingredient in there that is giving it that fragrance, but it doesn't bother me at all. And it is very much just a lotion that is intended to be a really nice makeup base. It's super hydrating, which I need all of that I can get. And it is a little bit silicone-y, so it has a really nice smoothing quality to it, but it doesn't clog my face up. So I really like this stuff. I just find that usually I want to work with like a dewier base, but I also wear tons and tons of skincare during the day, during the winter, and so I don't need as much like dewy cosmetic appearance out of a primer. So this is really nice, and you can feel it kind of start to grip down in a nice way as you rub it in. So I've seen people of all skin types really find use in this stuff, and they have like a liquid version of it now that I think is a little bit more mattifying. Because as we've seen over the last handful of years, anytime that there is a product that becomes a classic that people just keep talking about, brands have started iterating on those really aggressively. And so if they have something really successful like the vitamin enriched face base, they're going to do a vitamin enriched everything base kind of thing. And you're going to see a little bit of that going through. So I want to talk about, like, I'm not going to use this because it's expired. It smells bananas, but this is another product where everything is named after it because it's so popular and because it's so good. So this is the Luminous Silk Foundation from Armani, and I would have used this today. I mean, it was among the contenders here. I have 5 contenders here, but this one is really, really fantastic, and it's what I had in mind. It has like a medium coverage, like a medium satiny finish. It's just really lovely, and the shade range works pretty well for me, and they do sell minis, which is great because I am prone to, letting things expire because I have so many things. And the contender that kind of fell out of favor when I was testing these, preparing for this video, is the Prism Libre Skincare and Glow from Givenchy. Not only does it have an especially strong fragrance, it just kind of doesn't carry its weight against like the beautiful finishes of other luxury foundations. This does come in a matte and a glow version, but as far as the hydration that I need and the finish that I want, like there are things that are more blurring and there are things that have a more beautiful finish to me. So this one just kind of, but the concealer, absolute 10 out of 10. And then the main thing that my brain goes to when we talk about like classic products, classic brands, and the best thing that I would recommend from a complexion or foundation standpoint, Chanel really has foundations on lock. The one thing I would say, well, 2 things. Their shade ranges were not good for a very, very long time. They have started improving them, but also in some cases they are, oh, I'm gonna treat my lips. I was like, I am dying. In some cases, they are inconsistent line to line, especially the Vita Lumiere Aqua. It is just darker overall shade for shade. I don't know why, but like I can't wear B10 in it, and it's the lightest shade. Like they really need to expand that shade range. I was really happy when they took the octinoxate out of it, but I still can't wear it because it's too dark. It is worth mentioning right now that there are so many fantastic foundations that I am not able to include in this video because they have octinoxate in them. Octinoxate is a chemical sunscreen ingredient that just happens to break my skin out, and that's not an anti-recommendation for other people. Plenty of people have absolutely no problem with octinoxate. So they took it out of the Chanel foundation, but it still was too dark for me. But like, the first example that comes to mind is Shiseido. They have some of the most unbelievable foundations that have stood the test of time. And I can't use them because they'll have like 10%, 6% octinoxate in them. And I'm just like, you know, and it's such an unnecessary amount of SPF. I complain about it all the time, but that is a huge reason that like a lot of the really, really beautiful like legacy foundations can't make their way into my routine. It sucks. All right, I'm using the Thrive. This is the Bigger Than Beauty. It's Thrive Skincare line Pout Hero, and it has like the subtlest little bit of sweet smell to it or something. It doesn't taste like anything, and it is fantastic as lip prep. Like as I'm doing my makeup, it'll rehydrate everything. And it wears really beautifully alone too, and it's not wildly expensive. A lot of the stuff today I am talking about is going to be a little bit on the expensive side. I'm having like brain fog trying to reason through why that would be, but the products that have stayed really consistently in the zeitgeist do tend to be more expensive. So back to Chanel. I have here 2 Chanel foundations. If y'all were watching my channel, what, a year ago, I finished the Sublimage Le Temps, and I didn't buy it again because I have the Sublimage L'Essence de Temps, and I'm gonna work through it before I buy another one of the Sublimage Le Temps. So this is like $150. That's why. Blame Hindash for talking me into buying this, but it's really, really great. This is the Le Beige Healthy Glow Foundation. These are both in the shade B10. These are actually pretty consistent in terms of, you know, matching, and I like that I kind of wear B10 in most of their foundations. So they also have one at Ulta that's incredibly lovely. I do not want to get all the way in the weeds with the Chanel foundations. They're all very, very lovely, but to disambiguate these, this one's got more coverage. It's just for when I'm having kind of worse skin days, but my skin really likes a Chanel foundation, oddly because it's got fragrance in it. But the Sublimage L'Essence de Temps is very hydrating. The other one though, that is very hydrating that I actually found to work pretty much exactly the same, it's also not inexpensive, but it's not $150, is it Cogendo? I've always said Cogendo because it just sounds like French, but it's obviously not French. So I think it's Cogendo Aqua Foundation, and I ended up picking this up on sale. I think the last time that was it like Macy's or Saks or somebody had a sale, and I was like, I bought this one time and I got the wrong shade, and this time I got 002 and it's a fantastic match. So I applied these side by side earlier today, and I found that while I love this and I will continue working through it, there's absolutely no reason to spend that money on it. The Cogendo is just as good. And we have talked recently about the fact that some of the very specific needs that are catered to by specific formulas that might justify the price are needs that I don't have yet. And so these might not perform identically on someone else. Obviously, 2 products are never going to be exactly the same, but when I applied them next to each other, I truly couldn't tell the difference. Like I truly couldn't tell the difference. So this one's in plastic, that one's in glass. I mean, that's inconsequential to me. This whole video, well, it was inspired by the last video, because I do think that brands need to be concentrating more on talking about what's good, not just what's new. And I think that, well, what sucks is just that what's new is always going to catch the eye of the main consumer that they're trying to bring on, which is very young people in a lot of cases, because they're the ones out there spending so much money kind of experimenting with new products. They're more likely to buy something even if they didn't already run out of something. It's not necessarily a replacement, it's more of an experimentation thing or a collecting thing for them. And that's not to say that it's not that for a lot of other people, but I think that that's what the decisions are being catered towards in a lot of ways as far as like marketing is concerned. And so the products that are really beautiful legacy products don't get the attention that they deserve in a lot of ways. Oh my goodness gracious, that's so freaking pretty. I am due for a peel. This layers beautifully. It isn't slippy. It's not like so dewy that it's going to slip all over your skin, but at the same time, I'm a very dry skinned individual and it is December here in New Jersey. So look at that. When it dries down, it's going to go a little bit more satin than this. It's not going to glow quite as much, but it has a fantastic blur to it. That was the thing that set it apart from the other things that I was testing it against, was just that like my pores were smoothed out more. So that was really lovely. I applied a couple of layers in different places because my pigmentation is pretty dark right now, but you can get away with doing it really, really lightly. It's a very flexible formula. So y'all know I have my favorites in terms of concealers, but the one that stood out, at least in combination with this foundation and the base product today, is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. Again, blame Hindash. I do also really love the Jouer. I just don't want as much coverage today, but that one is a fantastic concealer. So this is in the shade Vanilla, and it's actually very much my winter shade. So that's the other reason I think I went for it today, is because it's a little bit lighter than I have been wearing, but my skin is also lightening up quite a bit. And it's about to lighten up a lot when I do a peel. I went to the Grand Canyon, I actually went to Phoenix, and I will say I did not maybe take my skin cleansing routine quite as seriously, and so it gave me a few little friends to pick. I also started my period, so things kind of popped up on my chin, so you're getting to see, that's the benefit, right? You're getting to see how the concealer covers blemishes. I don't have the little pot, the full coverage one. I'm thinking about getting that, especially again, as we're talking about moving back to the classics. At least I am. I found that, I don't know, I don't really, this is terrible, I don't watch that much beauty content because I prefer to kind of like stay in my own paradigm. I prefer to kind of be influenced only by my own experience and my own opinions. There are certain people that I respect a lot, but I would say that most of the content that I consume on YouTube is, well, is gameplay content because of my child. We love watching Zelda gameplay, but also just like commentary. So at least here on my channel right now, I'm in the mood to return to the classics because I do feel like we are at a noticeable deficit of new releases, which makes my job not harder, but it makes me pivot. It makes me kind of think differently about like what I like to use and what mainly, like when I'm thinking of a video idea, I'm like scrolling my feed and I'm like, what do I wish was here? Like, what do I wish I opened my feed and saw, because that's the kind of thing I want to make. I would never make content that I wouldn't want to watch. Now, contour. It was an interesting thing as I thought about it because I'm like trying to think of like the most classic contour. And actually what came to mind was this, the contour wand from Charlotte Tilbury. Charlotte Tilbury! Which I have not always been a huge fan of because I see people like on TikTok kind of stamp it, you know? And that's not something that really works for me because this is quite a high contrast shade on me. I do though appreciate, from a color theory standpoint, how easy this is to use because it's not incredibly cool toned, and so that's going to make it easier for someone who is kind of getting initiated to the idea of contour because it's going to blend more easily into your bronzer. But also I love this because when you do put it on and you don't like what you did, it just blends and blends and blends, which is really nice. Like there's something about contour that really freaks people out. It really makes people scared to use it because I think everybody fears the dirt stripe, you know? If that's your fear, going with something that does work more as like a bronzer is a really great way to save yourself maybe some trouble. And also, by the way, Mercury is retrograde. I'm not finding my words today. I'm sorry. Like my brain's not hydrated. I don't know what's going on. But in order to make this work, what I'm doing is I'm spreading it out on my hand so that I'm getting a sheer amount first before I even dip my sponge in so I don't end up pounding like a whole bunch on. That's all. The color is really nice. It's just made so that it can go on a lot of different skin tones. And so it is quite pigmented. And as you can see, as you put this on, like the Milk Makeup one, like good luck. Good luck blending it out. This one will just blend. So it's like if you hate what you did, it'll still just continue to blend on a damp sponge until it looks really natural. And I feel like it's incredibly flattering. I can get it all the way in my hairline too, because it's like not the creamiest thing in the world. It's kind of this like very thin liquid suspension that works really beautifully to actually like get in places that you wouldn't necessarily go. Like I would almost always say that you need to use a powder contour to like finish your makeup off because you can't get a cream contour into your hairline, and so it's always going to have that like line of demarcation and look like it's floating. But this actually goes into my hairline, which is awesome. That is why I think it's really popular, and also because it's so thin. Like it's so thin when you put it on that it doesn't add any kind of like mucky anything to your skin, and that goes a long way with me because I do tend to use a lot of different products just in thin layers. And it has a really actually strong contour effect. It is a little darker than the contours that I typically use, but it's also a little bit warmer. So I find that I can actually put it a little bit further down because it starts to blend into where I would put bronzer. So bronzer. This is kind of interesting because I ended up with 2 different ones that I wanted to try for this. And honestly, it would have been 3, but I wanted to concentrate on things that were a little bit more like hybrid finish, not powder, or I would have gone with the Gucci. I love the Gucci bronzer. I wear number 1 and it's just a really uncommon shade and it's really beautiful and I love the packaging. I love everything about it, but I'm kind of trying to stay in a little bit dewier of territory today. So like, while I have multiple shades of the Chanel cream bronzer, it's not something that I recommend going and spending your money on because it's kind of a frustrating formula. I love the Say one. I love the Vive bronzer, although be careful. My friend Natalie has been wearing it and she realized that it is quite green on her. So it is like I think the fairest tone has a little bit of green in it and it might be too much for some skin tones. I mean, the NARS one is really lovely, even though it smells like coconut, but there are a lot of really beautiful cream bronzers out there that perform really well. And the Chanel has just really disappointed people. I can't believe they haven't like gone back to the old formula, but regardless, I have 2 here and I kind of cheated a little bit because like in terms of newness, I feel like these both are a little bit like newer and more top of mind, but I almost never use this on camera because for a while they only had 1 shade and it was like, yikes. I think they only have like 2 or 3 now, still not ideal, but this is the Westman Atelier Beauty Butter Powder Bronzer and it is so beautiful. And then I also pulled Power Boost from Rare Beauty, which is a much more affordable product. And I like both of them, but even though I wanted to go for something a little bit dewier, this is still a really creamy dimethicone kind of consistency. And so when it does blend all the way down, it does go to kind of like a satin. And it's a little bit orange for where I'm going today. I don't think that it is orange. I just mean that it is a little bit orange for where I'm going today. I'm trying to stay in a little bit of cool tones, you'll see in a minute. So I do actually want to use the Westman Atelier and show y'all how flipping easy this thing is to use. You wouldn't think so. And like when I bought it, I was like, well, I mean, they make all cream products. Why would they try and sell me a powder bronzer? Like, why would that make sense? But this is one of the most agreeable bronzer formulas of all time. Like there's crap on this brush. Like there's something stuck in there and I don't even care. Like, it doesn't matter. This buffs on like a dream. Like a dream. And I don't understand why. It's one of the coolest, like softest, it's really, it's not quite a powder, but it's definitely not a cream. It's just a really beautiful hybrid formula. And it looks so smoothing and beautiful on the skin. And I do feel like you can just kind of get away with buffing it, which I hardly ever do. Isn't that pretty? I feel like it's not that far off from the Charlotte Tilbury. Let me swatch those next to each other. They might be just the same color. I might have like rushed to the middle and not realized it. Ugh. Ugh. Anything that like improves my skin in terms of color and texture, come on. That is so good. That is so good. Wow. I kind of want to go overboard here. When I'm wearing a turtleneck, or like a mock neck like this, I get away with more because like I don't have to necessarily match my neck as much or match my chest, and so I tend to kind of go a little further with my contrast. So yeah, I want to swatch those next to each other. Okay, those are remarkably similar to each other. This is the Charlotte Tilbury and that is the Westman Atelier. So Westman Atelier has got a little bit more orange to it, a little bit, and this one's got a little more purple to it, but like that's why one is serving as a contour and the other as a bronzer. But when you stay with things that are that close to each other, it's so much more forgiving on the skin. So especially because it's winter and my skin is like, you know, give me all the bronze. Like this video if you too can put all of your hair up in one little clip. Yes, I can. One little clip. I am really shying away from setting powder right now. As it gets into this really, really dry season here, I just have to bear in mind that if I put powder on, I'm going to hate it in like an hour. And if I don't, like, yes, it might feel a little bit much at first, but like it's gonna soak into my skin again and look much better over the course of the day. So we're going to try and refrain from using any powder, like any setting powder specifically, but we are going to be playing with a little bit of powder blush. These are both really finely milled and really great formulas. And I ended up making a decision here, right? Because I have the Givenchy here in Mousseline, right? And then I have Thrill here from NARS. And I have to say, on delivery system as well as performance, I have good news for you because I'm afraid that they're gonna reformulate this too, the way that they did their powder, and everybody's gonna like hate it. So the fact that the NARS has already been reformulated to take talc out and it's not as obnoxious of a component and it's not scented and it's probably less expensive, I don't really know. But this is just such an amazing blush. This is Thrill from NARS, and that's what I'm going to use here on this big boy brush. Don't be afraid of big brushes. They actually spread product out more evenly. You know, it's just a tippy tap, just a tippy tap. And I'm adding coolness. I'm gonna kind of go towards a little bit more of like a cool wintry look today, even though we did go for like quite a bit of contrast in terms of bronze and contour. It's still not super warm toned. Just because you're playing in cool tones does not mean that you have to look pale. You can still play in just as much contrast and like healthy bronze and stay in like cooler tones versus your skin tone. Is that not gorgeous? Ugh. All the NARS blushes, I'm sorry, like they'll be in my will. They're just lovely. I also want to pull out a product that we haven't talked about in quite a while. I love these. This is the Chanel LeBlanc Rosy Light Drops. These are so gorgeous. And yes, I did also pull out the Baume Essentiel. I pulled both colors that I have. I have Dragé and then Mermaid Glow, and they're beautiful, beautiful. But this I found to be what goes with this look better. And what I love about this stuff is it's basically the color of like an under eye corrector for me. So it works really well as a serum highlighter on me, as well as an under eye corrector that works right here, because it's just going to be reflective, but it has a dry down. So I'll take it to the places that I usually put a highlight. And again, I did the same thing that I did with the contour, where I spread it out really thinly on the back of my hand so that I'm not having to do that once it's on my face. And look at that. Look what that does underneath my eye. Like I went all the way basically around the socket of my eye. And tools really matter. If I tried to do this with a brush, I'm not sure it would work as well. If I tried to do it with my fingers, I'm not sure it would work as well. A damp sponge is the way to get that really flattened texture on my skin without moving things around. But I do think that it makes a huge difference, especially when you only want to apply like a thin layer of something. Is that not so pretty? Do a little on my nose too. That you spread it out in an even layer on the back of your hand first, so that the sponge picks it up evenly. Isn't it great? And it's like less expensive than a lot of these kinds of products pound for pound, because it's in a foundation bottle. It's like 50 bucks, I think, unless, you know, inflation. It was 50 bucks when I bought it, and it is a full ounce of Rosy Light Drops. It's awesome. And look what it did underneath my eyes. Like in person, it looks so blurred, so beautiful, and it's going to like set down on its own. That's the thing about the Baume Essentiel, is it's gorgeous, but it will soak in. It doesn't really have a set down. This has a set down, and it's awesome. The thing that inspired this, again, besides the last video that I did, was also that Laura Mercier sent me a whole box of stuff. And Laura Mercier is not out here coming out with a lot of products. They are really like, we have the goods, use what we have. And so I did end up like swatching and going through all of these different caviar sticks that they sent, as well as the eyeliners. And y'all, while we've always loved the caviar sticks, and that's what we're going to be starting with here, I have to sing the praises yet again of their freaking eyeliner. So I think they sent me more than one. I do not know what I did with the rest of them. I probably put them someplace that felt really intelligent at the time, and I will stumble across them while I'm cleaning this room up. But I got Espresso Brown here, and she's the one that matters because it's just the perfect shade for my eyelash color. It's matte. It goes on just as smoothly as a satin kajal liner from Victoria Beckham, and it wears all day. And I just adore it, okay? I just adore it. They're really, really smooth. So today I have pulled just a handful of these little guys. You may ask yourself, what's the difference between these and the Bobbi Brown? And the answer is not that much. It's just a matter of which colors you like. And I do think that, Bobbi Brown nails down shimmers a little bit better. Moonlight and Starlight, I think, are the ones that are like exceptionally shimmery in Laura Mercier, and then the rest of them are just kind of this like softer shimmer. So just knowing what you're working with, I guess, but they're both incredible. So I'm gonna start here with Mocha. Mocha is not matte. It is still a little bit satin, but because of the nature of an eyeshadow stick, even when something is satin, it still blends down to something that doesn't have a ton of reflection to it. And I think it's gonna just sort of mimic the rest of my skin in terms of finish, and it's gonna be great for the crease. So that's where we're going to start. And like I said, I really tested a lot of stuff for this, and there were no real like losers. So I'm happy to do this again if y'all end up enjoying it. I do want to talk about, because I only mentioned it in the end of my last video, so I don't know how many people really saw it, but I am opening up, and I will be putting it in the description of all of my videos. I'm opening up like a prompt essentially, so that you can, if you so desire, submit photos of makeup looks if you want me to kind of help with specific questions that you might have, like about the color theory or the composition or whatever. This is not a, you know, r/am I ugly thing. I'm not going to critique anyone's actual appearance. This is more about like product recommendations, technique recommendations, and like color theory recommendations. And so I did put that on my Instagram and ask if that'd be something y'all were interested in, and abstractly you said yes, but at the same time it's all about people actually having the guts to submit the photos to be put in a video. So click through there, and the next time that you have a makeup look that like doesn't totally work and you don't know why, feel free, because it is going to help other people as well. Look at that. The classics are classic for a reason. I mean, good grief, right? Ugh. And it was this color that when I put it on, I went, I have to wear Chanel Boy with that. So that's what we're gonna be putting on my lips today. Chanel Boy is just magic. So here's Starlight. This is what I was talking about being, I mean, it's not glittery, but it is a very effective shimmer. I think that, sure, why not? I mean, you know, these layer beautifully. They're very silicone finish. And so maybe this isn't the one that I think is especially sparkly. I still maintain that Bobbi Brown has more sparkly finish ones that are actually sparkly, because I lament all the time that there are no real sparkly finish eyeshadow sticks. Can I just start calling them eyeshadow crayons? That's what I want to say, but no one calls them that. But like, stick just sounds so vague that it's never what comes to mind for me. God, look at that. The difference between an eyeshadow stick and a regular powder eyeshadow or a cream eyeshadow, with the exception of the Merit eyeshadows, okay, those are special. But like, look how thinly that spreads out. It looks like skin. It just looks like really beautiful enhanced skin, and it really gives the illusion of shadow and light without looking super made up. Because there is one called Cocoa. I ended up using Mocha, but there's one called Cocoa that's a little too dark for me and it ends up going a little bit sooty. And so staying really close to your natural skin tone and blending them together really, really well, like you end up with something that is almost undetectable as makeup. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, not that there's anything wrong with looking like you're wearing makeup, but like I didn't have to really work to like blend that into my skin, you know? Gorgeous, gorgeous. So you can't talk about beautiful legacy brands without talking about Hourglass. Okay, I pulled a ton of Hourglass products today that just didn't necessarily make it onto my face because I couldn't let Hourglass monopolize the entire thing, but I like just about everything that they do. I mean, this is brand new, but I love their palettes. This is a really underappreciated formula. This is the blush, and this is in the shade Loyal, and like, it's just this incredible pinky beige that looks great on my skin in the summer, but it's quite warm for this look. And so I didn't go with that for the blush, but like, I love most things that they do. Their lip liners are gorgeous. Today, I pulled Smoke from the Scattered Light Glitter Eyeshadow. I have something in my eye, it's making it hard to concentrate. I pulled Smoke from the Scattered Light, and it is the coolest one that I have in my collection. I have Blaze that's quite warm. I have Ray that is more neutral brown for me. I mean, it's still quite red, but look at her. She is the ultimate bedroomized Bambi, in my opinion. And if you have like pink undertones, it's, especially if you're very fair, it's going to look rich on you. Believe me, it's kind of bananas, like how those things work. So I'm going to, I think, apply this with a brush just because I can't get my little fingies in there. I'm gonna go in with a Rephr 02 because it's kind of flat like my finger, and because they're natural bristles, they're gonna pick up and lay down more product like my finger would. Ooh, girl. And see, on me, I'm so warm undertone, not warm, but like I'm warmer than this. It does pull a little bit like cool taupe on me. Not, like you don't get a lot of like the pink that's in there. Oh, it's so pretty though. Wow, 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 wow. Like Charlotte Tilbury, Eyes to Mesmerize. I don't like that formula very much. I don't really, even if I got it to stay all day, I don't love the finish and I find it difficult to work with. And this is something where I can achieve that same color as like Oyster Pearl, but it's so much easier to work with and I find the texture to be more satisfying. It's so pretty. It's so soft. Do I want just a little bit more crease than that? do I want a little bit more? I'm gonna pull Mocha back out and see if we can get a little bit more. Because I don't need to go for a darker color. I can just go for a little bit more. That's all. And it's so easy to work with. Like, yes, do I love a liquid eyeshadow? But a liquid eyeshadow doesn't tend to kind of layer this easily on top of other things as like an afterthought. Like this is definitely a, you know, a last second game time decision. Like, oh, I need a little bit more in the crease. And I do tend to do that. So I feel like you kind of have to plan your eye looks better if you're gonna work with liquid eyeshadows. And with something like this, I can just be a little bit more of a chef than a baker, if you will. That's nice. I think that that's nice. You know, you can get a little bit more drama out of it. I wanna make sure there's no really strong lines here. Oh, look at that freaking highlighter, those rosy drops from Chanel. Let's do this eyeliner and some mascara, and I will do my brows, and then we'll come back and talk lips real quick, okay? An instant classic. I've seen people comment, they're like, what did she just use on her brows because it was perfect? This is the reformulation, I'm almost certain, of the Merit brow gel, the Brow 1990 or something is what it's called. Either way, it is so beautiful. It's so beautiful, it doesn't break my brows out. It goes on in like the best level of pigment, and this is taupe. So I am always churning in my mind on like what's gonna work the best with the color story on my face, because I do have more makeup than God, okay? Like this shouldn't be something everybody's thinking about all the time, but you're also not trying to make a different makeup look every single day, most people at home. So when I am composing a look like this and I'm going for so many kind of cool tones compared to my skin, I also don't want my brows to be a warm brown, and I don't want them to overwhelm my skin, and so I didn't pencil them in, and I stayed with something that was kind of a cooler taupe that really, really matches my hair. So we're not really pushing it in that sense. Now, God, that's freaking pretty. Wow. Oh, and I don't know if you saw or like noticed, but that eyeliner, when I just used like that little flat, like this is not a precise brush at all, that Refer 02, but it was like, meh. I just made the quickest little wing ever. It was so easy. So I love when you can really rely on a formula to do so much work for you. All right, let's get this off of my lips because I don't want any concealer in my lip color. So Chanel Boy is one of the most deceptive looking colors on the internet. Whenever you look at it, it's like pink. Like in the bullet, I'm telling y'all, it is like a gray taupe, and it's very sheer. So when it goes on, it just has this really nice, I mean, on my lip tone, right? That is going to go like weird milky gray on most medium to deep, like if you have dark lips, you know, it's gonna be a little bit bananas, but on me, it is just this really great translucent, cool wash that just always surprises me in its ability to make a look like this come together, because it's almost like the lip version of Smoke from Hourglass, which is weird to say. It's like, why would I want to put that on my lips? But it works. If you're ever in New York City, I highly recommend going to the Chanel Atelier in Soho, because they are the nicest people ever, and they will let you try everything. That's the whole point, is to just go in there and play. And they have like sanitizers and everything everywhere, so like it's a system built in for you to be able to go and play. And it is not snooty at all. Like you almost would think that it'd be really snooty, but they're like the nicest people in the world. It's very, very welcoming and lovely. I highly recommend it. It's a little clear brow gel here. This is not a classic, but you know what? It's an instant classic for me. I've never used like the Anastasia brow products or anything. I don't really know why. I think it's just because I'm like this old scene kid and I was like, I'm not gonna use the mainstream product. But here I am using Chanel. So, wow. Let's take the hair back down, I think. I put hair oil in today, and I'm not sure my hair is like really psyched about that. Can't wait till my hair, like I can curl it and it's still long and I can put all the product in it and make it all fluffy. Miss those days. So this is the vibe. I hope y'all kind of caught on. There was a lot of testing that went into creating this video because I wanted to make sure that these were recommendations not just based on a product's reputation, but on my actual experience. And in this case, these products prove out. And I did mention a lot of other ones that I will list below that all also get my stamp of approval, my endorsement as far as what is truly like classic and worth it, but they didn't all fit on my face. You know, I didn't want to put dragé on top of this. I feel like that's not really the look today, but let's go through each one of these. The foundation, again, we went with the Kogan Dough, and I think that it's absolutely gorgeous. Look at it. I didn't end up like using any setting powder, and with the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, it's a very, I'm looking at myself in my monitor. It's a really ideal amount of coverage to have like a just slightly better than natural look on me, and I feel like the way that I pull that off is by staying in colors that are kind of closer to my skin tone. So it's like almost like a daytime glam because I'm not going super high contrast, but I do feel like I maintained this healthiness, or honestly I kind of created healthiness in my skin with the combination of the Charlotte Tilbury contour wand and the Westman Atelier bronzer. I feel like that just added so much life into my skin, but they're both so blurring and like low profile, which is great, especially the Charlotte Tilbury. The blush from NARS is so great because it's this wash of color, because I did go really hard on my bronzer, and so it's like we didn't want to like then pile more and more on. So it combined to make quite a lot of color on my cheeks as if I put on a lot of blush, but it's kind of the combination of Thrill from NARS and the Westman Atelier bronzer, which makes this really pleasant kind of like cool rosy color on my cheeks, and it just balances out the smoke shade here that matches, I feel like, the boy shade from Chanel, and then those Laura Mercier Caviar eyeshadow crayons, I'm gonna say it, and eyeliners. Like every single step was a pleasure. I think that the reason that products become classics is because they are both easy to work with and they create something on the skin that looks timeless. So they are colors that stay in the zeitgeist because they are skin native. They're not really wild in terms of like texture, in terms of color, and they also are, again, very approachable and easy to recommend to people because it's just such a reliable formula. You feel like the formula of the product is really like trying to work with you. And I think that that bears out. Like I didn't even use a setting mist today. I didn't use any setting powder today. And I think all of the finishes that these products provide, and also again, the ease of use, the fact that I can take those rosy light drops on a sponge and apply it directly on top of like other textures of makeup, and it doesn't even disturb it. Quite the opposite. It looks incredible. It looks like it just like seals it down. Incredible. Like that's worth my money all day long. And so I'm kind of glad that these things are clearing out a little bit so that we can concentrate again, like have a moment to talk about the things that work that are outside of a temporal context, because the classics are classics for a reason. Then that doesn't mean that I think that like just because Estee Lauder Double Wear has been around for a long time that everybody should go out and buy it. Like there are things that are meant for certain people's skin types and some that aren't. That's not meant for my skin type. And also the way that we kind of, in terms of trends, wear makeup changes also. Obviously we end up with a larger selection of certain things when they're popular, and so you'll get more of a selection of like matte foundations when it's popular, but there are people who wear matte foundations all the time, so it's like they kind of have to like seize on their classic at the time. So this is all based on my skin type, okay? Cold weather, dry skin, pale girl. But I also think that these products are meant very much to work for like a larger spectrum of skin types, because they are, again, like products that have had a lot of, in a lot of cases, a lot of money and a lot of research backing them. And so while they don't work for necessarily everybody in every case, they're going to work for more people than just me. And while I would think it would be logical, and I would love to say that like all brands putting products out are like, I really hope this becomes a classic, I think that's really not the case. I mean, obviously there are a lot of like rainbow palettes coming out that most people either love or hate. Like that's not something that's necessarily a temporal thing. It's just whether or not you want to wear really bright colors. I'm not really talking about that as much as these sort of flash in the pan products that are meant to go viral, not necessarily meant to stand the test of time. They're more for a short-term gain rather than trying to gain a longer LTV or lifetime value out of how many times a customer is going to buy something, because these brands are doing the math on the fact that if you can focus on a customer who buys more things more often than they run out of them versus a customer who is loyal to a brand but they buy something every time they run out, they're gonna want that person who buys in a more like hate tasty way. And so, you know, the people over here who really appreciate the classics, we might be stuck with the classics for a little while. So I don't know, let's just wade through those waters when we have the chance. I do get tons of requests for people asking me to kind of reach back, and I tend to get overwhelmed with new releases a lot of times, so it's nice to have the freedom sometimes to play within my collection and go back to the things that I love and know work really well. And that is the beauty of testing so much makeup, is that I can kind of put my voice behind these ones, because there are plenty of classics that I don't really like. You know, I don't really like the Almost lipstick from Clinique. You know, there are plenty of things that have just been around a long time, doesn't mean they're necessarily great. That's why reviews are still important. That's why these brands still exist, is because they do have a lot of customer loyalty, and because they're making products and continuing to make those same products that just make makeup easy. They make makeup easy to make it look pretty, you know? Like the colors and the formulas and everything, they just make it easy. So that's worth my money all day long. I did buy more than half of the things that I just showed you. I bought all the NARS blushes. I bought the foundation that I used, the concealer that I used, the contour, not the eyeshadow crayons, not the eyeliner. I bought the Hourglass eyeshadow. I bought the West Matelier bronzer. I bought almost everything, the Chanel lipstick, all of it. So these are all things that I was interested enough in to explore on my own and spend my money on, to review them out of my own curiosity. And it's because it's important to me to be able to compare things backwards also in time. Just because things are new doesn't mean they're better. So thank y'all for being here. If you liked the video, please do take the time to give it a thumbs up. Tell me in the comments, please, what is your, or what are your classic products, right? And if there are any that I haven't tried that you think would work for my like skin type, or my wants and my needs, the things that I get excited about, please let me know. We can do more of these videos in the future as well if you like them. So let me know down below if that's the case too. And if you are new here, subscribe while you're here. We'd love to have you. I'll put a video up here that I think you'll enjoy if you liked this one. Thank you all so much for being here. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.